Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace, hanging out by the Salt River here in the Superstition Mountains, and we are going to do a sunset photo challenge. And so what I have done here is, first I scouted this location. I used the photographer's ephemeris to figure out what time golden hour was, the angle of the sun, and this awesome little location here where I can see the river and the mountains and everything behind me. Right now I'm having to work very quickly because behind me the sun is about 3 or 4 minutes from just going behind a mountain. We're going to lose all the light. So let me show you what I have here. I am shooting with a 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8L lens, and I'm shooting in aperture priority mode, and I'm shooting f16, so I get lots of depth of field. There's some other photographers here flying a drone around. Sorry about that noise, but it's a public place. We sort of have to go with what we get. So what we're gonna do here is, first, I need to I figured out my time of day. I figured out when the golden hour is. I figured out my location, but now I need to figure out my composition. So I brought a few different lenses. So I have my 105, my 24 to 105 here. It just wasn't quite wide enough. So that's why I switched to the 16 to 35. And so I think I'll be shooting right at about the 16 millimeter range here. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna zip over here. I'm gonna frame up the shot, handheld, figure out exactly what I think is good. I'm gonna shoot a little bit wider than I normally would. That way I can crop in post if I need to. And then also right on the front of the camera here, I've got this little button. It's the depth of field preview button. That will help me see how much of my image is going to be in focus. Because I don't have a manual focus lens here where I can see a depth of field gauge, I can just use this little button and it goes zip and it closes down the aperture. I can look through my lens and see everything that's in focus. So I'm gonna do that just to make sure f16 works for me. So I'm gonna do that. And it looks great. Everything from the front to the back is in focus. I'll take a couple test shots. Now all I need to do is, once I have this lined up exactly where I want, I'm gonna put my camera on a tripod. That way I can do some bracketing. I can be very creative. I can try some HDR images, and I think we'll be successful. Well, the sun is just about to go away, so I'm gonna take these pictures and then we'll come back and review what happened. All right, let's review. Here are some images that I've selected to illustrate what was happening with the light and the composition and some of the issues that I encountered and the strategy for doing some post-production. So this image here is fine, but there's really just nothing going on. But I want you to notice one thing, and that is the high contrast light that we're getting down here. And notice how that will change as we go forward. Now, all of these images were shot within about 10 minutes. So the light was changing pretty dramatically. So the next photo, you can see a couple of things. Immediately, the color is changing. So the sun just moved a little bit, and we're starting to see a lot of green and orange up here in the mountains. And also notice how there's a shadow that's hitting right about here. That shadow is going to move as we go forward in time. So this is okay. It's a usable shot, but I think we can do even better. So I kept shooting. You can see right there, there's some clouds. The sun is hitting. There's just a huge difference between this light and this light. And so as we go forward, I'm moving my camera to try to see if I can pull in a little bit more drama over here or over here. And I'm just playing with it. The clouds came out, and so I moved my camera into almost 180 degrees to shoot the opposite direction. But the issue was that it was just too hot here and a little bit too bland here. So we have high contrast orange light and not a lot going down here. I didn't like the composition. And so I moved back to this direction, and things are starting to look much better as the sun is getting lower and more orange, that golden hour look. You can see here on the mountain side, we're getting this just golden light reflecting off of the mountain. And so I recomposed. I shot a little bit wider because I knew I wanted to crop this, and then fixed my level a little bit, and then kept shooting. And you can see between this and this, we've lost the light. You can also see some things going on down here. There are some people walking around. There's a little guy who is fishing down there. And so for this image, I didn't think I could use it. But this one here, I thought it had good structure. I could have stopped there, but there's some issues, some significant issues. Because of the clouds that aren't in the sky, so there's no clouds really here, there's nothing to reflect this golden light that is coming from the sun. This is a really bland sunset. It's an okay foreground. The mountains look great. And so I think we can make this look spectacular by creating an artificial sunset. This is the image that I think is a keeper, but it's bland. We need to do something to the sky, and I can use the magic of Photoshop to do this, adding a spectacular sunset. So we are creating an artificial landscape. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go back here into Lightroom, and I'm going to select this image. Again, this is the one that we want to add that spectacular sky to. So you can go into Photoshop. So I'll right click, say Edit in Photoshop 2021. This image is going to open in Photoshop. Now that we're in Photoshop, let me just do a couple of things. I'm going to double click my hand tool to fill the screen here. And then I'm also going to click on the background layer and hit Command or Control J to duplicate that layer and then rename that. I'll name it Mountains. I'm just doing that so if I make some mistakes, I can always go back and I've got my background layer sort of preserved here. Now let's add this amazing sky. It's incredibly simple. All you need to do is go over to Edit, go about halfway down and click on Sky Replacement. Now immediately what's going to happen is this little sky replacement dialog comes up, and you'll see there's a sky that pops into where the sky is in your image. You can just use the default sky, or you can right click, or you can click on this arrow on the right, and you can choose these different skies. So we have blue skies, we have spectacular skies, we've got sunsets. By clicking on different skies here, you can see different effects. And so I like this spectacular sky that's about halfway down, the sky right here. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to allow Photoshop to do the work for me. So if I click off of this, you can see I can do an edge shift, and I can fade the edge and adjust the temperature and brightness of the sky. I can do all kinds of things here, but this looks good as is. And so I'm just going to say, okay. Now we could stop there and we could save this and we'd have a good image. And you might want to do that in your image that you're working on. However, this image has one significant issue, and that is if we zoom in, we go down here to look at this area here, you can see that the river here is reflecting the old sky. It doesn't have the pink reflection. It still has these little white clouds and the blue sky, and so it doesn't match the sky that we're seeing. That's an easy fix. So what we'll do is we're going to go over to our layers palette. I'm going to click on this sky, and then I will again hit Control or Command J to copy the sky. So I have sky copy. And now what I want to do is click on this. You can see that there's a link. So I need to right click on that and unlink the layers. So these layers that Photoshop creates are all linked together to create the effect that you were seeing here. But I want this one to be unlinked so we can work on it independently. The other thing I want to do is get rid of this layer mask. We need to create a new layer mask. So I'm just going to right click on it and say delete layer mask. And so now we have this sky. What we need to do is mirror this. In other words, flip it upside down, flip it vertically, and then lower it so it covers this lake, and then mask it out. So what I will do is I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and then I'm going to flip this vertically. So that will flip this over. Then I'll just use the Move tool to move our flipped over sky down. So I'm going to put it about right here. You can just sort of play with it. But I think that will be a good place. We're just going to get these pink tones. Okay, now that we've done this, we need to mask out the sky and only keep it on the lake. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn off the sky copy that I've created just so I can see below. And I'm going to click on the mountains layer. Then I'm going to select this part, this highlighted part of the river here. So what I'll do is I'm going to go over here to my quick selection tool. So I will click on that. The shortcut key is W. And then I'm just going to click on the lake. And I'm going to just keep adding until I get a decent selection of where I want to put this, this sky reflection. So I'm going to leave the reflection of the mountain there. Maybe I'll go over here just a little bit, add a little bit here. You can see I'm just sort of adding what I think needs to be replaced. Once I have that, I can go back up to the sky copy, turn on that layer, and now that I'm on this layer, I can hit my mask button, and it's going to mask out everything except for that place that we've selected. And of course, this looks horrible right now. We need to change a few things. The first thing is we need to change this so that it doesn't look like it's just a clone. So what we can do is we can change the blending mode from normal to overlay. So that is going to preserve some of what's underneath there, but preserve the color that we're using. That looks pretty good, but we need to sort of fix the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go way in. I'm going to zoom at 100%. I'm going to work on the layer mask. So what I'll do is I'm going to get a brush. And so the brush tool, you can hit B for brush. And then once we have our brush tool, it's right here, I'm going to make sure that it's a nice soft brush, so about 20. And then you can adjust the size. So I've got a brush about 160-ish. And then what I can do is I've got white selected. So as I paint white, it's painting on. So it's painting the sky in around these edges here. And it's too much right now. It's a little bit too much, but I'm just sort of showing you how you can fix these edges. I'll paint right here, add a little bit of that. So I've painted in a little bit more sky, but we've got issues. It's on this guy, it's on the cactus. It just looks a little unnatural. So what we can do is we can play with that. We can go in, we can move our foreground and background color from black to white and paint out the sky, paint in the sky. We can work this manually, but we're going to get to some places that are really picky, specifically these bushes over here. So how can we manage these edges and do a good job with that? Well, we can use a different kind of selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the mountain layer, the mountains layer, because that's the layer we want to select from. Then I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to do color range. We're going to select a color range of this dark green here because it's nothing like the color range of the pink sky. And so that way we'll get a nice selection. So I'll hit color range, and then I can see exactly what I've selected here. So to start with, I'm going to choose selection preview none, so I can see what I'm selecting. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to click right on this bush here. So I will click that. And then let's see if we look at selection preview black matte, we can see what we've selected. So you can see that we've selected these bushes here, and it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I will hit OK, and now I've got this selection here. So what I want to do is go back up to my sky copy matte, and I want to matte out that. So I want that to be black. So what I'll do is I'll just fill that with black by switching black to the background color, hitting Command Delete, which is fill background color. And you can see, whoops, I'll hit cancel, deselect. You can see that we're starting to get these bushes and things are coming out of here. So if I work on that and do some multiple selections to really refine the layer and do some things to get all of this stuff refined exactly, then in our end result, we are going to get the final image that I created, which is this guy right here. And you can see that it looks pretty darn good. It's not a perfect edge, but it looks pretty darn good. And you will get from the beginning, this sort of bland sunset to this in the end, a pretty spectacular sunset.
Well, there you have it, our sunset challenge. Work very fast, get there early so to make sure you can figure out where you need to be. Do your scouting with an app like the Photographer's Ephemeris to figure out when the golden hour is, the angle of the sun, and where you're gonna get the best view. Also, make sure you cover your bases by shooting in different locations. Remember, if the sun is shifting around, that's okay. Just shoot at different places. You're going to get those light isolates that are hitting the mountains or whatever you're shooting. It's going to look very awesome. And then don't give up on it. Keep shooting until the sun is all the way down, and you're going to get great results. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. Don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free. And click on the bell to make sure you get notifications. We're updating new stuff every single day. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.